Nerd Guy channel. So we are going through my Mainstage rig today, which is a video I've been wanting to do for a while now. Just never made sense to either. Just didn't feel good about where my rig was at, or was buying a new computer, or tons of different things. So now I'm finally in the place where, you know, I can do this video. So super pumped for it. As always, like, sub, share, subscribe, all the things y'all do to help. Get into an argument in the comment section. It's good for the algorithm. So, yeah, let's just hop right in. So let's talk about the controller I use first, and then we can go. So I use a MidiFighter twister. And so it's actually really cool. I love this thing. It is awesome. And so each one of these knobs turns and also presses. So you can press in. And then it also has a super button feature where you can press and hold and turn, and that controls a different MIDI parameter. And so there's also 3 banks, so you can toggle between banks over here. And so there's lots of cool things about this MidiFighter. I'm not going to set up an overhead cam, because if you'll see on the screen here, it directly corresponds to what I'm doing here. So this is the top left knob, this is the one underneath it, this is the bottom right. And so I use it to control volumes, I use it to control filters. So you see the piano has a filter moving, on and off. I love this thing. I've been using it for 4 or 5 years now. It hasn't crapped out on me yet. Yeah, let's hop in to the concert. And so it's if you don't know, it's important to understand how Mainstage sets up just its hierarchy and its concert hierarchy. And so you have concert level, set level, and then patch level. And so anything concert is your highest level. So anything on your concert level is going to be anywhere and everywhere in your Mainstage concert. And so if you have a reverb on the concert level, it's going to be on every set you set up, on every patch you set up. It's going to be everywhere. If you have a pad that you like using, it's going to be on every set you set up, on every patch you set up. It's going to be in every single place in your Mainstage concert. And so I like to use the concert level to basically house or store all the things that I know I'm going to use, in all kinds of different scenarios. So a lot of my pads, like my prayer pads, any of my basically most of my pads, any of my effects, my reverbs, delays, those are all on the concert top level, because I know that no matter what song I'm playing or what environment I'm in, I'm gonna want certain pads to always be around. So I keep those on the concert level. I don't use set level a ton, but patch level I do use quite a bit. And so patch level, it's going to have all the same concert level stuff accessible, but then you'll have patch specific stuff. So I have a piano patch here. If I created another patch that had like a Rhodes or something, then this would be patch specific to the Rhodes, and then still all these pads would be here. So it helps you kind of create some stuff that, or create some presets and channel strips that you're going to want to use wherever, and then have more patch specific stuff for songs or whatever it is. So a good example of that's like the prayer pad, right? So, okay. So this is just the prayer pad I have, right? This will be a pad that I use under, like a prayer. This pad is everywhere. So if I was to create a new, like, Rhodes patch here, I still have this prayer pad accessible. So yeah, we're going to walk through these pads here in a second, but it is important to understand when you're setting up your Mainstage concert, how that hierarchy works. I see a lot of people just use patches, and it's really cumbersome because if you make a change, if I make a change to a pad here, I would have to go and resave it to every single patch. And so it's helpful to just have this stuff top level. Yeah, let's go through these pads. I have a ton of different pads set up. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which I use for different things, but I have a lot of pads going on. So I do think it's worth saying just real quick, this is a worship CCM like Mainstage rig. This is not like cover band gospel rig. There's a lot of pad, really pad heavy. It's not, there's a different context here than somewhere else. And so just remember that as we're going through this. Very CCM heavy music, very contemporary. This is what this is for. I have other Mainstage files for different types, but this is the most complex one just because there's a lot going on. And so, yeah, let's go through some of these pads. So prayer pad. So I use Nexus a ton. I used to be a huge Omnisphere guy. Still love Omnisphere, but Nexus is just, it's kind of like Keyscape. There's just a lot of stuff that's just ready to go, load and go, as I would say. And so I love Nexus. So with, for me, personal taste with, prayer pads, you're looking for something that has a lot of low-end stuff, not like sub, but just not a lot of high-end distracting things. It's just real mellow, real warm, slow attack. This doesn't work well when playing fast songs because it's a very slow attack. There is a little bit of a high-end tinkle stuff that I'll show later on my effects bus, but a trick with doing pads with slow, attack times is trying to find a way to create some continuity between chords. So if I were to take, I'm in the key of B flat, right? So I have like B flat, F, and B flat in the right hand. I can kind of keep that over every chord. So here's a 4 chord, 5 chord. So you have, half of the notes not re-articulating, which kind of creates more of a connected feel to G minor. Keep that right hand structure. Don't move anything. And then maybe like up to C for the 1/3. But still, I got to that C before I changed chords, so it's still kind of held over. So that's the biggest thing I've found to like have effective like slow attack pads under prayers, is to find ways to really connect a lot of the notes. It drives me crazy when I see people moving all their fingers. It's just so distracting, does not sound good. And so yeah, that's just helpful tip. Try to keep the notes connected. Try to move not as few notes as possible, but I've talked about in videos before, like a lot of times you can treat your right hand as like kind of color, and then left hand as defining the chord structure, or vice versa. Left hand is like meat and color, and right hand is what's defining structure. But very rarely do you want both of them doing the same thing. Like one is color, one is the chord, and then just adjusting accordingly. And so, yeah, that is the prayer pad. Let's go over to my, call it warm pad. It's just a little bit brighter. Right? It's just got a little bit more. It's still kind of a slow attack. Which has got a little more energy. There is a transposer on this, is taking it up 1 octave, which, you know, this is kind of a dumb thing about certain pads in certain libraries. It's like, why is that the default setting? So the transposer is just to get it into like a normal range. And I'll talk through the modifier stuff in here in a second. Yeah, just that one just has a little bit more edge to it. I'll talk through the effects buses here in a second, but there's not a lot on it. There's just an EQ. Same thing with the prayer pad. A little bit of, you know, reverb, but not a ton. And so after the warm pad, we have what I call the girth pad. So again, just even a little bit brighter. Okay, so that one's just a little bit brighter than the last one. And if you've kind of noticed a trend, prayer pad is super dark. The warm pad has a little bit more high energy to it, or not high energy, but just a little bit brighter of a pad. And then the girth pad is even brighter than that. So how I'd maybe, you know, kind of set that up is like, I'm kind of here, then open up a little bit, and then that's how I'll build that. And that's kind of the way I think about pads and just adding size to like certain sections of music, is each pad kind of has a frequency spectrum that it specializes in. And so the prayer pad is a very warm pad that's kind of not low end, but it's just kind of down here. It's very mellow, very chill. And then this one has a little more just kind of, you know, heat to it. That's what you want to call it. And then even more here. I'm just adding in high frequencies. And then I have this pad. It's called the arrow pad. It's got a little bit quicker of an attack. And then I've got this knob set up to the filter. So I got volume and then the filter. So this kind of gives me some flexibility to like... run it somewhere in here. So if I were to stack that up, a little bit more here, and then final one, not the final one, but the next one is... On this one, I actually need to add a little bit more of this. So this is truly just a lot of just high-end energy. It doesn't sound that great on its own, right? It's like... I'm taking it up an octave, so it's actually higher up here. I've got a few plugins on it, effect rack. I'm not doing anything on it actually. And then some Valhalla Verb. You just saw that. Not even 100% wet, because it's on the channel strip. If it's on the channel strip, you don't go 100% wet. So that doesn't sound that great on its own, but if I add it in with, you know, other things, right? So yeah, those are a few pads. So again, I'm just thinking of to create energy, I'm adding in pads that kind of highlight a different frequency spectrum. And so another pad that I use, I actually probably use this the most, even though it's not the most aggressive, it just fits on everything. And that's this airy pad. And so there's a pad in the Oliver Arnold's library called the Evo Ambience that's just freaking sick. I discovered it by accident. They sent it to me. And I was looking for a piano, and then I stumbled on this one. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. So I'm doing quite a bit to it. I'm, kind of verbing it out, shimmering it out too. Got some of this on it's not doing a ton, but it's adding a little bit. And then this. So the F6 is one of the most important plugins I own. It's basically a dynamic EQ. And so as frequencies start to build up or get too loud in an area, you can set it to compress just those specific frequencies. And so it's an EQ and a compressor combined. It's clutch. I use it all over my file, and we'll get into some of the other places where I use it. But this allows me to preserve this to some degree, but if it gets too hot, it starts to kick it down a little bit. Because there's a lot of times where it's like, hey, I like high end, but if the high end builds up too quickly, then the high end's like harsh. So I want it to clamp down on that, but I still want the high end there when it needs to be. So this is what a dynamic EQ allows you to do, is kind of be a little more picky on, more nuanced in how you just compress stuff. So I love the F6. It is not, it's like $30 and it is absolutely clutch. And so that is that. There's one more pad, which I don't use it a ton. That's kind of just one I have from a song we played. I think it was Lean Back, and I tried that and used a little bit. But I also have 2 pulses that I have set up. They're not actually loaded. Actually, use a ton of pulses anymore. We just use so many tracks that I just don't feel like I need to. Honestly, I could probably use them a little bit more. It's just using arpeggios and pulses are so hard in Mainstage because you have to get the downbeat right, and then you basically have to sustain a note as long as you want to use it to make sure the tempo stays locked in. So it's fun when you get it. It's like, sick, I nailed the timing there. But then you're kind of exposed if you have to do it again or whatever. And so I don't use a ton. We just do so much tracks that it's so easy to find that somewhere. We don't have to worry about it. And my position on tracks has kind of changed over the years. I'm a lot less prideful about it. Like, I don't feel anymore like I have to play every single thing. I used to feel that way, and now I just don't care. I mean, it's nice to be able to program that stuff and know how to program it if you're in a situation with no tracks, which happens frequently. But when I am in a situation where there is tracks, I tend to just play piano and pads. If we're playing This Is Amazing Grace, I'll let the tracks do that lead line. I don't feel like I need to do it. And so that's just my personal take on it. Everyone's different, but I don't feel like I have to nail every single song component these days. But that again, that's a That's a hot take. Not everyone agrees with me there. So let me walk you through the effects sends I have. So I have a pad effects, which is right here. So again, I'm doing, you know, F6. This is just on the send. This is not an actual master or output. This is just the send. So it's just clamping down a little bit in some spots that I've kind of deemed I don't like over time. And then, actually, let's hear that full blown. So yeah, that's just clamping down on some of these frequencies. And then next would be effect rack. Yeah, I got a little bit of pan man. Just giving a little bit of left-right depth. I could probably get a little bit harder. Echo Boy and then micro shift. Sound Toys is great. If you don't have Sound Toys, they're absolutely sick. I got a reverb on here. Not fully wet, even though it is a send, and typically you'll go full wet on sends, but low cut your verbs, you know, don't leave a lot of low in there because it just gets messy and it's not worth it. And then I'm doing a little bit of EQ here. I don't know how I got to this. It just kind of works. I've just found like cutting a lot of this just opens up stuff in the right situation. So in this setting, it makes sense. I have a sparkle kind of send. Which you'll hear it kick in here. So I'm just using the crystallizer and Sound Toys to get that. I love the crystallizer. It's great. Then I'm using a pad shimmer. Low cutting and high cutting. So there's not a ton there, but enough. It helps. It just adds a little bit of high-end air. You know, so it's worth having. That's really all on the pad side. I had everything. See, I run quite a few pads. And again, I just think of them as like layering them on top of each other as I need to create size. The other thing that I want to talk about real quick before moving on to pianos, I have everything going to a pad bus. Make sure all your like your pianos are going to a piano bus and your pads are going to a pad bus. There's multiple reasons to do this, but the big thing is you don't always know what environment you're going to be in, and so you want to be able to quickly reroute multiple things at once. And so if I didn't have a pad bus and everything, all my pads are going to output 3 and 4 or output 1 and 2, and I was playing in a place where it's like, hey, can you split your pads out and do a separate stereo send? I would have to go through and individually select each one and resend it to output 3 and 4. Where here, everything's just going to this pad bus, and they're like, hey, can you just send this to a separate stereo pair? It's like, yeah, and then I'm done. It's that quick. And so it just makes more sense to do it that way. It's just my personal preference, but I feel like it's kind of a right personal preference. And so on the pad bus, I actually have an F6 on this that is sidechained to the piano. So it's responding to what the piano plays. We'll get into that when we get to the piano section. But it's just kind of helped me create space for the piano when I'm kind of digging into it a little bit. And so, yeah, that is pads. Yeah, so let's get over to piano. So right now I got the Noire Pure pulled up. So a piano, let's go through just the ones I use. I mainly use Noire, Gentleman, and Grandeur. So let's go through that. That's Noire. Let's go to Gentleman 2023. This keeps doing this. Sometimes Mainstage just acts like it's a $30 software, and there's nothing to do about that. So let's save that as, wait, that's Noire Pure. Did I mess something up? Noire Pure, replace. Yeah, and then let's save this. Channel EQ, high cut. There we go, and then save that. Gentleman 2023. All right, so here's the Gentleman. So that's that one, and then the Grandeur. So those are the three that I use mainly, and you know, Gentleman's kind of this like really in your face upright. Noire Pure kind of sits in the middle, and then the Grandeur is a great piano for like big stuff. I do use the felt every once in a while. Got to really be real picky with those because sound guys tend to hate that sound. So, yeah, Noire. Let me fix this real quick because, you know, I've found lately that sometimes, like, things just don't save the way they're supposed to. It drives me crazy with Mainstage. All right, so Noire. No, I'm not doing anything in here really in the actual plugin. And I also don't have a ton of plugins on the channel strip for pianos either, but I will go through some of these settings. Velocity, I do a little bit of velocity compression, adjusting just the min-max and just the ratio here. There's multiple ways to compress piano. You can do it on the MIDI side. You can also do it on the audio side. I find that, you know, when you go to new places or when I go play at a new church, you got to get in here and dial this in a little bit because it does make a difference. Because this is really just a direct response to the keyboard. And so you got to be careful here. And this also funnels into your actual audio processing here. And so... this is the FG stress, you know, it's kind of hitting it. So it's slightly touching it, you know. Input gain is mediocre, attack, release. You know, if I take this away, so just kind of squeezing it and making it louder. You know, this is something that really has taken me a long time to adjust to in the worship world. Is things are just going to be more compressed on the piano side. It is not like other types of music. You're squeezing this stuff, and a lot of that's just kind of the genre and the way people are used to. I've learned that dynamics tend to not annoy and not scare, but it seems like sound engineers that live a ton in the worship CCM space really hate dynamics, where if you've grown up in like jazz and classical or more the, you know, technical based, forms of music, like dynamics is really encouraged, and it's kind of part of it. It's not the same in this world, so it's taken me a lot longer to get used to than ideally. And I find a balance there between using like audio compression and also the MIDI compression. I've really found setting min and maxes for MIDI velocities helps, because I can tend to like kind of just back off, and I really want things to just get elevated without really squashing the signal. It's different. Like, you're not squashing the signal, you're just saying, hey, you never played that MIDI CC value at 40. It was just 80 all along, And so that helps a little bit. And then on this, you got to mix. Well, I don't do 100% wet or 100% dry. It's just kind of in the middle. I've just found it's good balance. And then a little bit of shimmer here and thickness, which honestly isn't doing a ton, but it's there. Why not? And then, so I do have a shimmer that I'm sending my piano to, which is right here. 100% wet. It's actually shifted all the way down. Interesting. Well, that is that. I'll just leave it there. Make sure your reverb mode is on big stereo. Don't leave it on mono, please. Just make it better. And then Shimbus, and then Room Verb. Again, Valhalla fixes everything. I've found I like this 1980s vibe a little bit better than the 70s. And I don't know why I've landed on the dark plate. I've kind of gone around and changed it every now and then, but yeah, this piano, I don't do a ton of processing to the piano other than, I found the compression settings are really important. And then I do have everything going to a piano bus here. And so, let me talk about how this is. So if I'm going to play the piano, this is the F6 on the pad bus. So the pad bus is adjusting how it's EQing and compressing based off of what the piano's doing. So if I play a low note, you're going to get different response. And so that helps the pads kind of duck out of the way for a second when the piano's like really going. I've found that I have a hard time when I want to have a lot of pad, my piano can like quickly disappear. And if I'm running everything just one stereo mix, that gets kind of frustrating. And so I've found that kind of doing this, and I can kind of set, you might not be able to hear it a ton, but so it makes a difference, right? Makes a huge difference. You actually really can hear that, especially if you're using headphones. Like when that was bypassed, the pads just felt like they're sitting on everything. And then when I added it back in, you could hear it slowly coming in and out. And you got to make sure you have these attack and release settings I think these are actually just the way they come in, but you can change these to be more aggressive or less aggressive. It works for this, but you don't want to get that pumping sound. You just kind of want to create a little bit of space when you articulate. And so that's just side chaining. So I'm, sound source exterior to bus 10, which bus 10 is the piano bus. And so I've found that really helps. And I've actually gotten some good feedback on that lately when I've mentioned that's what I'm doing. And so, that is that. Let me talk about one really cool little TNT here, little tip and trick. I didn't This is not my thing that I discovered, but a buddy showed it to me, and it's kind of a game changer. If you've been paying attention, you've noticed that when I mute stuff, the plugin's not muting, right? So the plugin's still active. What I'm doing is I'm using a modifier. And so a modifier basically just takes a value and reassigns it to another value. So it's actually there's a lot that you can do with it. But the way that I'm using it here, and again, I didn't come up with this, but the way I'm using it here is I'm basically taking a note and reassigning it to a new MIDI value. And so what that means in this case is when the modifier is on, I'm taking every single MIDI note that I play after the plugin's activated, and I'm reassigning it to essentially a dead MIDI CC value. Some libraries use CC3. I've seen it in string libraries, in orchestral stuff, but this is no one uses it in this world. So what that means is this note, as soon as the note comes through, because remember, signal flows top to bottom, so the first thing that's happening is this plugin's grabbing these notes and reassigning it to nothing. Essentially, it is a MIDI CC value, but it's essentially nothing. And so, well, Sam, why would you do that? Like, why just not mute the plugin? So let me kind of set up a scenario here where so let's say I want to go into a down chorus after this, right? Oh, I can't even show this example accurately because actually maybe I can. I had to mute the plugins to show it, but what essentially happens is, when you bypass plugins, anything that's being held or sustained instantly gets killed. When you use a modifier, I'm able to hold these notes, insert the modifier, so nothing that's going to get played after this is going to go through the channel strip, but everything that's being sustained will, so I can keep this section building. Let me bring this back in. So check this out, I can go. All right, let me do that again. So, so I can use energy and like propel that phrase and keep pushing and pushing and pushing, turn the modifiers on, which is kind of backwards. I want to say turn them off, but you're turning the modifiers on, which kills the note input values, kills the note input. And then I can just hit this downbeat safely. It's like, so that's been a game changer for me, is using modifiers to kill your patches and not. And so it's a little bit harder on this. It's not really even harder on the CPU because this modifier is killing the signal before it gets there. So this is, I guess there's 3 ways to really kill sound on a channel strip. There's the modifier way, there's muting muting the actual plugin, and then muting the channel strip. Muting the channel strip is the worst way to do it, because let me do it on a better one where you can actually see the well, maybe it's not such a bad idea. Long time ago. Oh, that's because I'm not. Yeah, This is why. So this is why muting is a bad idea, because even if you're muted, you're still sending signal to the plugin. It's just choking it off at the end of the channel strip, because the mute. This is the last thing that happens, right? But when I bypass the plugin, or when I kill the signal flow, nothing's happening. And so modifiers or bypassing the effect plugin is the better way to do it. Do not mute your plugin. Do not mute your channel strips. That's just not a good utilization of your CPU resources. It just doesn't make any sense. So modifiers are clutch. I love them. And so let me just kind of, do a little showcasing, because I haven't really done that a ton. Just kind of play through some of these like I might play on a Sunday. So yeah, that's a very loose showcase. So yeah, hopefully it's helpful. Obviously I'm assuming that, if you made it this far, you've already figured this out. This is super intermediate, not beginner stuff. I'm not getting into the layout tab or anything there. This is all assuming you know how to set up a rig. If you don't, maybe leave a comment below, and if I see enough people, I'll do a new video of how to just work Mainstage from a basic level, because there's a lot of stuff in here that's just pretty complex. So yeah, hopefully it was super helpful. Thank y'all for watching. You made it this far. Like, sub, share, all the things are super helpful for me. And I will see y'all later.